Welcome to the Messenger-Inquirer Gridiron Report, sponsored by Cranos Home Furnishings and Carpets Unlimited. I'm Scott Hagerman, and with me is Jim Pickens. And Jim, it kind of feels like mid-season. We've got Hancock, Catholic, and McLean off this week, so we just have 4 games involving area teams. And, you know, you just get that feel. October comes tomorrow. We're really at the halfway point now, I feel like.
Yeah, we are, and I think that a lot of teams kind of know where they stand, and I think that a lot of teams are still trying to find their footing, even though we are at the halfway point. And, you know, one of our games we're going to talk about is a good indication of that coming up.
Well, we're going to talk about 6A to lead off, and then we've got an interview with Cal Prince, Owensboro quarterback Cal Prince, coming up in the second segment, and I'm really looking forward to hearing that. But let's talk about 6A, 2 interesting games. One really interesting game in Daviess County going to Apollo. I don't think there's any question both teams come into this game really needing a win. Well,
there's no doubt about it, and it's going to be interesting to see how this one plays out because, I mean, last week both of them suffered very disappointing defeats. I would, you know, just frankly speaking, I think that both of them were disappointed with those results, not just the fact they lost, but just the way they lost. And this is an opportunity for both teams to show really what they've got. One team's going to come out of this much better headed into the second part of the season than the other.
You know, I think it comes down to who can put points on the board. Now, that sounds rudimentary. I mean, it always comes down to who can score the most, but we're talking about 2 offenses that scoring has been a major issue for both of these. How do you see that breaking through this week?
Well, it'll be interesting because the strength of these 2 teams are their defensive units. And for whatever reason, I can understand Daviess struggling some offensively. They've got a new quarterback, and he's a young quarterback. He's a sophomore. Their running game is not really what they want it to be. I can understand that a little bit. I have a little bit harder time understanding what the struggles have been at Apollo. I think their skill position people are pretty good. I think that obviously there's some problems with their line, or they would be putting more points on the board. This is a team that's really struggled to score over the last 4 weeks, and we'll just have to see if they're good enough to break through against a Daviess County defense that up till last week had played very well. Now, last week Henderson County rolled right through it, but this team against the mid-level type teams, they played very good defense.
And I know that surprised both of us, the fact that Henderson had so much success offensively, because we really thought, while Daviess has struggled offensively, we thought Daviess's defense was pretty stout. So that was surprising.
It was.
And I think Apollo's defense is really good. They're just in bad situations so much because of the offense not getting things done that, you know, if DC plays to form defensively, if Apollo does what they've been doing, I really believe 7-0 could win this game.
It could. And the thing that you made a good point there, Scott. Apollo does have a very good defense. It's better than I thought it was going to be. So, I mean, you know, we're sitting here talking about Apollo having a bad year, but the thing is, their defense is better than I thought it would be. But the problem is, if your offense is only moving the chains 4 times, last week they had only 4 first downs in a home game, a district game, where you've got to, you know, you should be focused, you should be ready to play, and that tells me that the offense really does have some serious problems up to this point, and we'll just have to see if they break through. I still think they have some very good people on the offensive side at Apollo, but their offense has definitely put their defense in a bad position.
No question. The other 6A game involving our teams is Muhlenberg going to Henderson County. Muhlenberg coming off the big loss at Hancock. We just talked about Henderson rolled against Daviess. What do you see here? Is this just Henderson and there's virtually nothing Muhlenberg can do about it, probably?
Probably so. Henderson, their victory over Daviess spoke volumes to me last week. It convinced me that they are far and away the best team in our 6A district, and it showed me how good they are offensively and defensively, and Muhlenberg will have a lot of trouble in this game.
Let's talk about the 6A standings and how these games this week kind of relate to, as you can look forward, and how pivotal they are to these teams making the playoffs. You've got Marshall sitting at the top of 6A 2-0. You've got Henderson 1-0 along with Graves. And then you've got Apollo sitting there at 1-1, the win being over Muhlenberg. DC 0-1, Muhlenberg 0-3. I don't believe either one of us believes Muhlenberg is a team that's playoff ready for this year. How big, though, do you see the DC Apollo in the grand scheme of things? Do you feel like this is for a playoff berth?
Probably so. I think that you can't take a chance that it's not. I said that about Apollo playing Marshall last week, and I think all these games in 6A this year are critical, the ones that you can win. And here's why I say that. I think Henderson's going to run the table here, and I think that the odds are that Muhlenberg probably won't win a game. So that's going to come down, basically it's going to wind up coming down to Graves County, Daviess County, and Apollo for that.
And Marshall. You got Marshall
I've got
in
Marshall
at the 2
in.
spot
Yeah, I've got Marshall
because they've
in.
already got 2 wins.
I've got Marshall
Okay.
in. And so I think 3 teams are playing for 2 spots, and that's going to leave 1 team out. So, I mean, as the season goes along, if you don't pick up a W somewhere,
Right.
it puts more pressure on you too, Scott. If you don't get it now, it's harder to get it later sometimes.
Right. Marshall is at Graves this week. If you're Apollo and you're DC,
Well.
you got to want Marshall to win.
Yes.
In my opinion,
Yeah.
they've already got 2.
Yep.
Particularly Apollo.
Yep.
Anybody that's beat you, you want to beat
Yeah.
everybody else.
If Graves County pulls an upset in this thing, then these 2 teams are in trouble. You know, either they are or Muhlenberg is. And the fact is, we need to mention this. Got to mention this. Muhlenberg is yet to play Daviess, and
Right.
Muhlenberg beat Daviess last year. And now this year, Daviess has to go to Muhlenberg, so it would be remiss if we didn't mention that.
Here's the thing. Graves is sitting there at 1-0, but I know everybody's taking them lightly because they're 1-4 overall. So everybody's looking at them as being in that group with Apollo and DC. Here's the thing. Here's their last 3 losses. To number 4, 3A Paducah Tillman, to number 1, 1A Mayfield, and to number 3, 4A Lone Oak, and that was only by 19-6 to score. Are we really underrating Graves County, you think?
Well, we could be, and that's what you can't take a chance on. I mean, that's why this game Friday night is big. You've got to win this game if you expect to get in the playoffs. Now, you may back in the playoffs by virtue of some other things happening later, but if you expect to get in the playoffs, you better win this game.
I think we discounted Henderson at the start of the year based on what we saw
Yeah.
last week. You feel like Henderson is the team in this without question, or could Marshall be in that in that mix?
I think Henderson's the team. Coach Clevenger communicated with me this week over there, and he feels like that they've sort of turned a corner. You know, they've played tough people early, and they took their lumps a little bit, but they're much better now, Scott. And I think that he feels like that as the season goes on, this team is going to get better and better. And if they do, they're going to be clearly the cream of the crop in 6A.
We're going to talk about the high-powered 5A matchup between Christian and Owensboro right after the break.
Okay.
But first, I want to talk about Ohio County playing Hopkinsville this week. Hopkinsville comes into Hartford. How do you see this game as far as Ohio looks like they're playing better? Are they playing well enough, you think, to get past Hopkinsville?
I'm not sure that they're playing that well, but I think that this is going to be a relatively close game. I think that Ohio County can be competitive in this game, and with a break or 2, they may be in it at the end with a chance to pull off an upset. But I do think it would be an upset if they beat the Tigers.
Well, the thing about Ohio County is, you know, they may not win a game this year. They may, we don't know. But they're bringing it every week. I mean, it really looks like they're playing hard every week.
It does.
Give Todd Houston credit, Coach Todd Houston.
Yes.
Give the players credit. Easy to fold when you're on a 25-game losing streak. And the Eagles have not folded.
No,
I respect
they've
that.
continued to play hard.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to take a break for just 30 seconds, and we'll be back to talk about Christian coming into Rash Stadium to play the Owensboro Red Devils, and we'll hear from Owensboro quarterback Cal Prince.